Hey, John Nolan here. Listen, I could tell you that gas prices are going up, food prices are going up, inflation's going up, but you already know that. When it comes to important life decisions in my life, I pay close attention to my intuition and to the science that I'm getting. And lately, more and more people from the food industry, trucking industry, packaging industry have been telling me, listen, a big crash is coming. We're going to have huge food shortages. And I pay attention to that. People are moving out to the country. They're growing their own food. That's exactly what everyone needs to do. But also prepare in the short term, have emergency food ready. That's why we partnered with My Patriot Supply. So if you hop over to preparewithinspired.com, you can save $150 on a 3-month emergency food supply kit today. We just encourage you to look it up. If this is the right thing for you, do it now. Go over to preparewithinspired.com. Hey, Inspired Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers. It's John Nolan here. Welcome to another Inspired Conversation. And today we have a very special guest on the show that has been recommended to us by many people. I just told him this, email after email came in and said, you got to have him on. And we're honored and proud and happy that he's come on the show today. Greg, the Hydrogen Man, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. Thank you for having me on. This is great. Love you guys. I love your show.
Thank you, and vice versa. Greg is a true bringer of love, of solutions, of the end of suffering, if you will. And we talked just now before the show for a little bit. And one of the things that usually connects all of our guests and also connects us to our guests, because it's also our story, is that whatever they're presenting to the world came from a place of personal experience and usually a moment of personal suffering. And so it is the same with Greg. What he shares with the world today, the wisdom, the knowledge, comes from a deep desire to help others to end their suffering. Greg, would you lead us a little bit through your life story and what got you to the point where you became the Hydrogen Man?
You know, it's so funny, actually, now that as you were saying that, I was remembering, I had physical problems. I was sick. I was actually incredibly sick. I couldn't walk. My joints hurt so bad that I literally couldn't lift up a remote control and change the channel on a television. And I also had a heart condition that was quite severe, and I needed open heart surgery. But what's funny about what you were saying is it reminded me of this moment when I was a child, because I had this very weird, almost like, I just really, since I was little, I always hated to see people suffer. And it was always something that resonated with me in regards to wanting to end suffering somehow, ever since I was a little kid. And I had a lot of emotional pain when I was a child, for many years. And maybe that's why I had some of the medical issues, because unfortunately I poisoned myself trying to take my life multiple times. And it was obviously very foolish. And I deeply regret it. Actually, it's something I do have that regret, though I know that sometimes people say that, you shouldn't regret such things because, they're part of the process of this thing we call life sometimes, and what leads us down the road. And eventually I got really sick and I just thought my life was over, man. Not being able to walk is just brutal. But the worst part about it was the pain. The pain was just a level 10 pain. And even painkillers, opioids, morphine, like it didn't even make a dent. Like I still had the pain, and those pills actually made me sick. I would shake and it would make the pain worse when I was shaking. And it was a really, really low point in my life. And, as I was sharing with you, when you're at a low point in your life, sometimes you pray, and I prayed with all my heart, all my soul. I prayed with everything I had. And I vowed, I made a promise. I said, look, if I can find a way to end this suffering and to find the answers to heal this body, this temple, of the spirit, then I promise I'll share with others, and I will do it, no matter what. I'll put in so much effort. And then that's exactly why I opened up my YouTube channel. It's not the most popular, subject matter. And it probably wouldn't have been the direction I would have wanted to go, but there was a calling, and I realized how special hydrogen is and how special clean water is. And I did all my research to find the best modalities of that. And it clearly healed me, including my heart condition. My cardiologist was blown away. They just couldn't believe that it was just gone. And I had that condition for over 2 decades. So it was a really big deal, and it changed my life. And then it started changing other people's lives. Like my father, the high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, glaucoma, and arthritis. He was on medications that were really bad for him, including his liver. And this stuff got rid of, using hydrogen properly, ended up getting rid of all these problems. And it was for me, it was such a relief, because he's a wine connoisseur. So he loves wine. He loves wine tasting, these type of things. And these medications, you weren't supposed to drink alcohol because you could die. And so that was I was so grateful that this was able to help him, and it just changed his life and many others. I mean, I have countless stories. I've been doing this for years now, and the amount of people that it's impacted. And it just, every time I hear one of these stories, my heart is filled up with so much joy, because people tell me, you're making such an impact, even to the point where I've had doctors contacting me. And they're like, what did you do with my patient? Because the results were just phenomenal, and I want to know what you did. I was actually invited to a medical center to do a talk and explain, hydrogen, how to do it properly, because the majority of the ways of doing hydrogen out there are actually incorrect. And there's a lot to learn. It's a very new subject, so there's a lot to learn. And so I've been doing a lot of educating on it, because I get my information from the #1 university in the world that researches hydrogen, and it's in Japan. It's called Keio University. And so I'm really big on doing it right. And the way that it helps people it's just absolutely mind blowing.
We all know the importance and significance of water, just from a biological standpoint, and how it sustains life. We're learning, of course, about the consciousness of water too, more and more today, and understanding that there's a much bigger picture, multiple dimensions that we haven't previously perceived about water. But I'm asking you, and this is what David Icke's son, taught me. He says, explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old. Please explain the process to me like I'm a 5-year-old, what it is about the hydrogen that you discovered and that you're using and that you used to heal yourself, and what it is that where people can kind of start their journey with hydrogen.
I guess the first thing I'll say is I always have to remind everybody, I'm not giving any medical advice. I'm not making any medical claims. This is important. But hydrogen already, it's already been shown medically to be, efficacious, that it clearly has a lot of positive effects on human health. So we already have a lot of science. And that was one of the big things that I wanted to do when I was researching this. I didn't want to go off hearsay or somebody who thinks they got a result. I know the placebo effect is a very powerful one. And so I really wanted to have the right data. And hydrogen is a gas, just to make it real simple for people, just like oxygen. And actually, it gets very interesting and quite spiritual, because water is H2O. O is oxygen. H2 is what we call molecular hydrogen. And that's the magic, is the H2 aspect, because oxygen is oxidative. It's oxidizing. And of course, we need oxygen, but everything in life is actually about balance between oxidative and antioxidative. It's all about balance. And hydrogen brings balance. That's what I've seen it do. And that's what the science appears to be showing, because they call it a selective antioxidant. That's what they call it. I remember the very first literature I read on this, the scientific data. I actually thought it's very complex. And of course, I won't go into the details of that, but it literally looked like a guardian angel watching over the human body and doing things, amazing things. And I actually thought it was a hoax. I was like, this is a scam of some sort. And it took about 3 to 4 years of reading the literature and seeing that it was coming from legitimate universities, and to realize this stuff's real. And because usually when something's too good to be true, it usually isn't true, And so I was really skeptical. And, but this is actually something that this is going to be the first time I'm sharing this. And I think this is very profound. It's actually my idea. And I believe that it will be proven in the future. Most of my theories have been. You remember when you talk to water, how water responds? Or if you play music,
yes,
or certain thoughts, all these things.
We have actually used this to our loving advantage many, many times when we infused water consciously with information, like overnight, put it on a piece of paper with beautiful, loving statements about whatever it is. We've done this often, spoken to water. it works like clockwork and magic. Yeah.
It's so incredible. But here's my theory. It's the hydrogen within the water that's actually responding. And the reason I've come up with this is because hydrogen is life. It's literally the source of all life. I mean, even planet Earth, the sun is made up of almost entirely hydrogen. And I believe that hydrogen is actually what connects everything, because there's hydrogen in everything that's alive. It is if we took hydrogen out of you right now, all of it, you would just drop dead. It's literally the source of life. And I have a live blood analysis from a laboratory in Japan. All my videos are numbered. So if anybody wants to see my videos on YouTube, it's free. You can subscribe. I don't charge for anything. And it's called Uprising 144K. That's the name of the YouTube channel. But there was a live blood analysis where they had a person just drink normal water and you could see what the blood would do. And then they had them drink hydrogen water, specifically from the device that is the best device in the world, because I know all the equipment out there. And they used that one in this test. And the amount of life it brought to the blood was unreal. Like you could see it. It was literally unbelievable. And I've had doctors contact me who literally told me that's impossible. They literally thought it was some type of hoax. And they bought a machine, took it to their own lab, repeated the same study, and got the same results. And they were just blown away that this exists and that it's out there. And my theory also is that when you infuse the water with this living molecule, hydrogen, which is why it brings life to the body, which is healing. Life is healing, as you age and get older and the life is leaving you, all these medical issues come up. This is a very, strong correlation here. And we can see the statistics that that's true. But when you infuse it with this living molecule, life responds to life. So if there's a dead horse, it's a terrible example, but if you kick a dead horse or yell at a dead horse, it's not going to respond at all because it's dead. But if it's alive and you yell at a horse or something, it's going to respond. So life responds to life. That's why what I do now is when you dissolve this hydrogen in the water, the positive thinking, the positive words, it's even more enhanced. Hydrogen, and I actually, because the sun is connected, again, hydrogen, it's connected to all the people, I believe. Ancient cultures, they worship the sun, and there's a huge connection, I believe, between hydrogen and the power of the human as far as our thoughts and intentions, because even stressful thoughts in our body bring, negativity, right? We can get a achy gut, or we know that stress is not good for the body, and our mind is controlling that. And we make hydrogen, our bodies make it, but as we age, we make less and less. And this is almost like you're supplementing it when you're using it. And the magic, it's already approved medically. A lot of people don't even know that. Most doctors don't know that. It's approved medically in Japan. Mm-hmm. America, almost nobody knows about it. And it's just such a special, unbelievable molecule.
Greg, can you run us through the time in your life when you said that prayer, and you said that prayer literally was answered? What happened afterwards? How did it begin to affect you? Because now today you're sitting in front of us. You are shining, you're bright, you're walking, you're running, you're doing whatever you want to do. You live a healthy, beautiful life. But as you said, you were at the end almost of everything. So how did you really then discover it, and how do you began using it for yourself, and how did that journey start?
Boy, yeah, that was a really long journey. So after I prayed and I was just laying there on the couch, and of course the answer wasn't immediate. Unfortunately, I still suffered for many years, but eventually it was somebody I knew who had seen some of this data, and they just kind of sent it to me, and I started reading through it. And I was so amazed by what it was showing as far as the medical benefits and the health benefits to the body and the anti-aging aspects of it, and just so much amazing. It was almost, again, too good to be true. So I read it. I read it for like 3 to 4 years before I even considered trying it. And the other issue is that there was so much to learn. I had no idea how to apply it, how to make it, how to use it. I didn't know anything about this hydrogen gas. And so then I began to, when I was reading the studies, I wanted to find out, well, what dosing were they doing? How are they implementing this? And I had to learn everything. And to be honest, for me, I didn't like reading all these scientific papers. It's so dull and there's so much to go over. And I just wanted to find, a way to apply it. And after reading for so many years, you just can't go to a grocery store or a drugstore and say, hey, can I get a bag of hydrogen? I mean, it's you can't do that. So I was like, how in the heck am I going to get my hands on this stuff, And that's where the journey began, about trying to figure out how to make it. But then I started realizing that there's many toxic ways. If you don't do it properly, the hydrogen, there's a lot of byproduct, like devices that use lye. I mean, there's literally devices that use sodium hydroxide, which is toxic, to make their hydrogen. I'm like, that's just insane. I mean, in my opinion, it's quite foolish, actually. And it's like, why would you do that? Because it's inferior technology. See, we didn't have the technology. And thank God for the Japanese, because not only did they discover this, then they began to develop technologies so that we could make hydrogen safely and properly, because hydrogen, interestingly enough, is the purest substance known to man. Way more pure than oxygen, by the way. In fact, deep sea divers would die if they were using oxygen, in their tanks. When they go really, really deep, past 700 meters, they actually use hydrogen because of the purity. So there are tanks out there. So I started researching equipment. I basically was looking for equipment on how to make the hydrogen. And it was such a long road. And then eventually I found the first piece of equipment. I've had a lot of hydrogen machines, and I've tried a lot of different ones. And it really wasn't until I found this Japanese company, and I found out that they were the number one company in the world in regards to hydrogen. And I called so many companies, and I noticed that everybody was giving me different stories, and inside I could just feel like they didn't really know. They didn't really have the answers that I was seeking. And this Japanese company, who was involved with, scientists, top engineers in Japan. And we were talking engineers from Toyota and G-Shock and Yamaha, and just really high-end stuff. And they knew all the answers and more. In fact, I started learning from them, so much. And that's where it all began. And then, of course, I started creating protocols and started messing around with it, until eventually, not only did it heal me, but it healed things that I never expected, like my heart. I never thought my heart condition would be healed. I thought I needed open heart surgery, which is what I was told. And that's kind of how the process went. But all that took years. It took years of trial and error and learning a lot about not just hydrogen, though, also water. Mm-hmm. Water is an intricate part of this whole thing, because you could have the device, for example, that I use, and it's literally no good unless there's water. I mean, that's a special aspect, is the water. And the water had to be to the highest purity. And I found a really great company that makes the best. They're American made, high grade stainless steel, and they make what's called a carbon distiller. I mean, if people want to check it out, the website's mypurewater.com. But it makes the cleanest water you can make. I have all the charts. I know every water filtration modality there is. I know all of them, and I know what they do and what they don't filter out. And the way that I ultimately came up with the answer was observing creation, the earth. How does earth purify its water? And it starts with hydrogen, because it starts with the sun, and the sun hits the ocean, and the steam ascends, that it rises. And as it ascends, it leaves all the impurities behind. And I started finding even scriptural verses about the purity of snow. Pure as a driven snow, pure as white as snow. Snow and rain is distilled water. I mean, that's literally what it is. And so that's how I found the best way to purify the water. And then I got something called concentrates. Minerals are super cheap. It's like $20 for a bottle. They last years. They're so concentrated. And I began to put that in the water with the hydrogen, and just that, it was blowing my mind that something that simple, just clean water and putting something magical like hydrogen in it with some really great minerals. And it was life-changing, not just for me, but for a lot of people throughout the years. So that's kind of the process. I don't know if that answers your question or not. Oh, I forgot to give, if people want a discount, there is a code for the mypurewater.com. It helps people out to get a discount. And the code is the name of my YouTube channel, which is Uprising144K. It doesn't matter. I don't care if people use it or not. It's really not my intention, but I do love getting people discounts. So I
Same here. Same here. We love when people can, save and get a deal on something. So we hear a lot about hydrogen now, more and more and more. I mean, back in the day, people came out with hydrogen cars and they were disappeared. The inventions were disappeared. Now, in terms of energy, hydrogen is becoming quite the subject. People know Brown's gas. How does that all relate to each other? And are we actually talking about the same principles, same subject matter?
We're definitely talking about something different. Brown's gas is definitely not as good as pure hydrogen. And the reason I say that is because the scientific data supports it. All the studies show that it's really pure hydrogen that's ultimately the answer to these medical issues. The hospitals approved hydrogen. They didn't approve Brown's gas. They approved hydrogen because that's the medicinal part. Brown's gas is a little bit more of almost like, I don't want to say like a pseudoscience, because there literally isn't one scientific study proving that it's really as effective, but it does make hydrogen in the Brown's gas. So hydrogen is already in there, and that seems to be the key component. It has oxygen too, but the problem with oxygen, a lot of people don't understand this. You don't want to supplement oxygen regularly. Because if you do that, anybody who knows anybody who's gotten on oxygen, a lot of times they'll never get back off. And it's detrimental to the body to use it for too long. Anybody who knows anything about oxygen therapy, what you oftentimes do is, for example, you actually limit your oxygen. Like high altitude training, you actually give yourself less. And then what happens is the body begins to adapt by producing more red blood cells so that you can absorb more of the oxygen because it's not there. But if you're giving it to yourself regularly, the body adapts to getting too much oxygen and gets kind of lazy, and that's not a very good thing. But hydrogen's different. The protocols that I develop with hydrogen, you want to use it regularly. And you really wouldn't want to do that with the Brown's gas. But most of the Brown's gas devices that I've seen, unfortunately, there's two issues. One, they use lye. They use sodium hydroxide, which is toxic. I've known people who've actually contacted me who have been sick from using Brown's gas. They've gotten sick from it. Unfortunately, there's some pretty big stories lately of even a few people who are hospitalized, and it was really dangerous. It almost killed one of these guys, the toxicity of it. As far as that's why I always say it's so important to do it correctly and do it properly. But Brown's gas, all it is just electrolyzed water. So all they're doing is running electric current through water, and whatever gases come out, it's like breathe it in. But there's other gases in there that are known to be harmful. Mm-hmm. And this is why the purity of hydrogen is so important. Making it pure so that it's not only medically effective, but so that it doesn't harm people. And if it is done properly and cleanly, it's actually safe for babies, pregnant women. You could give it to anybody because it's that pure. But when I read the fine print, it's funny. I always read the fine print on these websites about Brown's gas, and they'll write in there, not for human consumption. And I'm like, it's crazy to me that they put it there and they say, well, we have to say that. I'm like, that's not true. You don't have to say that. If hydrogen is safe, you don't have to ever say that.
You might remember this, but they were selling millions of boxes with face diapers and over the last 2.5 years, and they all had the same disclaimer on there. What these face diapers did not do. So there's the whole system is a big contradiction. I know you're not giving medical advice, but in your observation and experience, has hydrogen also shown to help people with psychological problems, depression, as chronic sadness, if you will? Has it also impacted them?
This is such a good question, because there was a study, and me personally, I think it depends on what's causing the depression. So let's say you're going through a breakup or somebody passed away. Hydrogen's not going to be like a drug that just magically makes you feel happy. But if it's related to your body, like let's say your gut is so out of whack, we know now through scientific studies that the gut is related to making things like serotonin in the brain. And so if your gut's all messed up, you could potentially be feeling, not very good, right? And hydrogen appears to have a great impact on that. It's actually amazing for the gut. It's so mind-blowing. I think I already mentioned it, but this woman who contacted me about her celiac disease, an issue with her gut, and it totally fixed that. And she's not the only one. There's so much, almost 80% of our immune system is in our gut, So I have seen that it has a positive effect on mood for sure. And also absorption of nutrients, which is very crucial to getting what the body needs and running on all cylinders, as they say. So yeah, it's even had a positive effect on, it was so funny. They did a study on mice about stress. And I was thinking, well, hydrogen's not a therapist, right? So why would it help these mice with stress? Because you want me to tell you what the study was, or am I just
Sure.
bore you with it?
No, not at all.
So basically what they were doing is they were having these mice carry out certain tasks, right? But they were putting more and more stress on them, inducing more stress on the mice to see at what point it was like the breaking point where they could not continue to carry out tasks. And the one that had the hydrogen was able to continue with these tasks, no matter how much stress, then the other mice would just shut down. And I was wondering, like, why is that happening? It's very interesting, but what is hydrogen doing? And it appears that it's affecting the stress hormone. So again, it's a balancer. So if it's going to get too out of whack, hydrogen seems to bring you back down and keep you balanced. So it was so amazing that it was helping with that psychological,
You know what I just realized that most people I know, including myself, sitting in a bay or on the beach or at the ocean for a little longer periods of time, days at least, has a tremendous stress, releasing effect on the body. And you can observe this. There's like when people arrive there and they actually, sit there for a few days and enjoy this. And I was just wondering if that's one of the effects that is like it's not just the visual, it's not just the atmosphere, but it's literally maybe the hydrogen that they are getting through the natural process.
I think that's actually very true. And, being in nature, the clean air, there is a little bit of hydrogen in the air, very small though. I mean, it's very small. I'm not even sure if you know how they discovered all this. You ever heard of a place called Lourdes, France?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. The holy water. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what happened was they sent scientists because there was an overwhelming amount of healing, for people. And it's like, okay, at some point the scientists were like, okay, we have to check this out.
I have some water from there right here in this right here.
You know what? This is going to blow your mind because I can show you how to make that one. In fact, this is what was discovered. I'll tell you what was discovered. They tested the water and everybody said it's just water. There's magical about it, until the Japanese went and studied it because they didn't give up. They knew that there had to be something there. And the reason everybody missed it was because hydrogen is so tiny that nobody could even detect it. But the Japanese realized that the water from Lourdes, France, has actually elevated levels of hydrogen, molecular hydrogen.
Literally.
Oh my gosh. So it was about 0.3 ppm, parts per million, is roughly what they found in Lourdes, France. And so what the Japanese did is they started doing studies in Japan, because the other issue is if you ever took that water and it leaves Lourdes, France, all the hydrogen's gone. Because the hydrogen, it's so hard to contain. Hydrogen is like, it's so free in the sense that you can't contain it. It always ascends. It literally is ascension. It's the ascension molecule. And it has an affinity. It's almost like a magnet. It goes to the heavens. It just wants to go to outer space. And the cosmos are made up of almost entirely hydrogen. It's like almost 80%. But the Lourdes water, that was tricky because if you bottled it and sent it to a lab, by the time it got to the lab, you'd never find the hydrogen. See? So this was really tricky, but the Japanese, again, thank God for them because they discovered that. Then they started doing the lab tests. Then they saw the miracles of hydrogen. And then they developed eventually the best equipment in the world, which has a ton of patented technology and what I call one-offs, meaning nobody ever thought of creating anything like this because nobody was interested in creating hydrogen, right? In a very pure and effective way, and in accordance to the science. It gets really weird because the hydrogen gas inhalation is different than dissolved hydrogen gas in water. The medical efficacy, it's different. They affect the body differently. And I came up with a protocol. I'm the one who actually invented a protocol of using them together in a specific way, which I gave away for free. I was told I shouldn't. I was told it was a really bonehead move, but I did it because I wanted people to have it for free. And I give it away on my video 337, the protocol. And they developed a piece of equipment that does both at a very high level, which was the hydrogen gas inhalation and hydrogen water, which is at the maximum saturation, which is 1.6 ppm. So it's like way higher than Lourdes, France. And it's just so awesome. But nature does it. Lourdes, France is not the only place either. There's a place in Germany. There's a place in Mexico, Tlacote, Mexico. And all these healing waters have one thing in common. It's hydrogen. So it's really amazing.
Inspire Trap, I just wanted to show you synchronicity in action. We did not talk about this before. Greg and I didn't compare notes. He talks about Lord's Friends water. Here you go. Here's a little bottle that we received as a gift. And even though you what you said, I do believe fully that probably that the hydrogen might be gone. The effect the water still has, if I have a headache and it's still, I drink just a little bit. And of course, my belief system plays into it, no doubt, but it is definitely very beneficial. I just wanted to show you Inspire Trap. This is synchronicity. What are the odds? There are no odds. It's how creation brings people together.
Oh, I just wanted to say one thing about the synchronicity part too, because the name of the device that I use is called the Lord's Hydrofix Premium. So that's literally the name of the device.
And part of the synchronicity was that my wife, Christine, knew exactly where to find that bottle in this very second and handed it to me. So this is part of the synchronicity here. Everything's working together according to the divine will. So Greg, let's say most people that might be listening today have maybe never heard of it or are just beginning to understand this. But let's say I have a physical problem, or I just feel this could be very beneficial to me. What are the steps that people can take right now to actually enjoy the benefits of hydrogen? Run us through the process.
Well, the nice thing is I originally wanted to make my own equipment, and I quickly realized that there's no way I could do it to the level that I wanted to, because you need so much technology. There's no way you could do it. And so the Japanese made it easy. It's a really beautiful story, actually. The guy who created the Lord's Hydrofix Premium, the 2022 edition, his daughter was sick. She was not supposed to live past the age of 5 years old. And he wanted to create the best home unit in the world and spare no expense. That's why he never had it made in China. He said, I could have made it cheaper in China. But this wasn't about profit. This was about making the best. The Japanese are like that a lot of times, like samurai swords they make. They're not thinking about money. They're wanting to make the best. They don't care what it costs.
They have 100-year business plans. They think differently.
Yes, they totally think differently, where the Chinese stuff is very short term, make the money now, but it can be toxic. Like I do tell people, like these little bottles, don't use these things. I personally definitely do not recommend the Brown's gas. This is the best device that he created. And he asked for help from top engineers in Japan because he knew that he could never pull it off. He needed specific industries to make specific parts of this particular equipment. So once you have the equipment, which is, very accessible in America right now, thank goodness, if people want to look at it, they can go to holyhydrogen.com. And if they want a discount, I have a code. If they want it, they don't have to use it. I don't care. But the code is all capital letters, Uprising 144K. But with that being said, once you have the equipment, my personal recommendation is, again, you want the cleanest water possible. A lot of people have reverse osmosis, carbon filters, gravity filters, and that's great. But nothing makes water like a carbon distiller as far as its purity. And we already talked about that. So once you have the clean water and you have the hydrogen generator, you don't have to get the concentrates minerals, but I do recommend it. I think it's a really good idea. And there's a lot of really good medical data about minerals also. But once you have it, it's really quite easy. The machine, they made it so easy. It's a one-button machine. They designed it so that it's easy to use, and also you can maintain it yourself, which is very important because a lot of machines, you literally have to ship them somewhere to have, maintenance and whatnot. This one, you can do the maintenance on your own. It's really easy. And once you have the machine, I inhale the hydrogen gas all the time, or you drink the water in intervals, throughout the day. And just like drinking normal water, really. But like one of the suggestions I give is drinking it on an empty stomach before meals, about 20, 30 minutes. And that seems to help dramatically. And it's that easy. It really is that easy. And it does have, yes, it has an effect medically, on your health. And we know that already. But what nobody's ever talked about, and in my opinion, is the spiritual aspect of it is quite profound. And I've noticed that the longer I've been using it, things are definitely changing, because I actually found scriptural verses where I actually believe they're talking about hydrogen. I think I was the first guy on planet Earth to find hydrogen in the Bible, and it literally describes the molecule as what it calls God's spirit. And because this molecule per square inch or whatever. It's it's got the most energy. So it's incredibly powerful. Hence the reason they make destructive things, which I don't even want to name, but hydrogen stuff. So it's not only super powerful, it's also the most pure substance. And it clearly sounds like God to me, because most powerful, most pure substance. And then it's also a part of all life. It literally is the source of life itself. And, there's a lot of talk about living water in the scripture, and the word life comes into play a lot. And so it's like it really is a holy molecule. Like, I love the website's name or whatever from the company, Holy Hydrogen. It's like, it couldn't have been a better name, and then, that's how you apply it. You just drink the water, inhale the gas. It's super easy.
And what is the cost of these machines approximately?
Yeah, so finally they're cheap, because technology for this type level of hydrogen used to cost you would have needed hundreds of thousands of dollars in a lab. And the first machine the Japanese developed was $11,000, and it only was a gas, so you could only inhale it. Mm-hmm. But they realized through scientific studies that the water had special properties, and it did things to the body that the gas didn't do. So they developed a machine that makes the gas and the water all in one, and they're under $2,500 now, which is, though it seems expensive, once you have the machine, it just lasts years and years. I mean, you can make so much hydrogen water for pennies. So it's the initial, expense, kind of like the carbon distiller that I recommend, which with the discount code, they're about $590, but they last forever. Once you have a carbon distiller, it just keep it clean, and they're very reliable.
And I do think that we need to have a paradigm shift about these things in terms of how we think about the investments. Because when we think about cars, or when we think about vacations, all these amounts don't seem to sound so big to us. But when we think about our health, and we think about our well-being, these amounts all of a sudden are too big. But if you add up and I don't know what those of you who are watching, some people go out drinking every weekend. Some people spend hundreds of bucks a month on frappuccinos and whatnot. So I think we got to shift the paradigm here and also say, listen, these are investment in your health, your well-being. And if you take a family and multi-generational, perhaps that investment then shrinks down to, fewer dollars per person. We haven't tried it yet, but that's, I know my wife, Kristin, she's like, okay, I love this. Let's try this. So this might be on our bucket list to do. Greg, what I would love to do is maybe next time when you come on, because I feel like today was a wonderful introduction into the subject, but as always, we want to go deeper. We would love for our audience to connect deeper with you. Maybe next time you could give us a presentation of how you do this at home, and how this works and how easy it is. You say it's easy. But I also wanted to ask you, if people want to learn more right now today, if they say, hey, I'm hooked, this inspires me, I connect to this, how can they find you, watch all your stuff, or maybe even get in touch with you? What's the best possible way?
So if people want to get in touch with me, they can just email me at uprising144k@gmail.com. And I'm really good at responding to people. If people want to learn more, it's a lot easier for them to just go watch my YouTube videos, which is Uprising144K. Just go to YouTube, type that in, and I have a lot of videos about hydrogen and even how to use it, the whole deal. I even show how to set up the machine, and I've done all sorts of videos like that. If they want to read the science about it, I do speak about it on my YouTube channel, but if they want to actually look at some of the science, they can go to holyhydrogen.com, and they have the scientific studies. They have an area where you can go literally read them. It's tedious, it's long, but if people are interested in that, they can see the legitimacy of this, that there's actual, studies out there. This is important. This is literally reading the data is how I created my protocol. That's how I get my ideas, by looking at scientific data, and then the ideas that I get, I'm like, oh, well, why wouldn't I am actually the guy who came up with drinking the water on an empty stomach, the hydrogen water. Nobody was doing that. I came up with that part too, because I remember learning about the human body and how water sits in your stomach, especially if there's food. And if there's no food, the water goes through quite quickly, and it carries the hydrogen into the GI, so that's part of the techniques. I was also going to mention the hydrogen pills. Be cautious of these, because this is what most people have heard about, the pills and these little portable bottles. And I say I caution people, because I'm about to release a video of a laboratory study on these, and it's not good. I've known people who use these. I actually did a video with a doctor, And he was using the pills and he didn't realize that they were actually not good for you. And then that's why I had to go so far as, trying to get laboratory footage, because nobody believed me. In fact, a lot of people didn't believe me about these things either. But now that I have the lab footage, it's just proving that I've been right. I mean, not to toot my own horn, but that I was right all along. And I was trying to share with people because I don't want people to get hurt by doing it incorrectly. This is very important to me. If you're going to do it right. If you're not going to do it, then just, that's fine. Just don't do it. But it's important to do it right. Just like food too. I don't want pesticides on my food. I want it done right. I'm so grateful to organic growers. The Japanese are also master farmers. They're really into their food and their craft. And so anyway.
I love the enthusiasm. And it's one thing that Greg exemplifies, like most of the people that we get to connect with, is the passion for a certain subject always also brings the spiritual element in. And this is the beautiful discovery that we're now making, I think, as humanities. Everything is spiritual. Everything is a spiritual connection. Whereas 20 years ago, we would have talked about the physical benefits and the healing benefits, yes. But the spiritual element is really what binds it all together, what brings from water to food to energy to everything is connected with this. And this is the fabric everything's made of. So it's really inspiring from that perspective also to see that it truly comes fully together. So it's Uprising 144K. Of course, this has, for those of you who know scripture, for those of you who know things, this has a very specific meaning. Greg, we would like to extend the invitation here for you to come back, teach us more, please. I know the Inspired Tribe loves to learn more. We love to learn more. So this is an open invitation. And thank you so much for your time today. We loved having you on.
Oh, thank you so much. This was awesome. It was one of the highlights of my life. It was so awesome to be on here with you. And I love what you guys stand for. I love what you're doing. And I'm absolutely happy to share all the knowledge that I have. Whatever questions you guys have or anybody reaches out. It might take me a while to get back to people because I get a lot of emails, but I always go through all of them and get back to everybody eventually.
That's absolutely amazing, because we can only imagine how much that is based on our own experience. So thank you. We will put all your links, also the purchase links, the codes that Greg has for you so you can save some money. We'll put everything in the video description. And then please go look him up, subscribe to his channel, learn. This is the beauty of right now, is that so many people are sharing, and Greg is out there putting videos out so you can really go into the minute details and how to use it yourself. So Inspired Tribe, take inspired action and do it. All right, we'll have Greg back on soon, and we'll be back with you again also very soon. Until then, be abundantly blessed, be inspired, and learn more about hydrogen.